I know I've done some stuff out there, but I don't know if I did this. I can't say I did or didn't.
I could tell that he was conflicted. I could tell that he was either on the verge of saying, I'm done, take me back, or he's going to talk to us.
There's no reason for your DNA to be underneath her fingernails.
I got the money, and she got up, grabbed it, and then I put up a knife and I killed her.
Why Flora?
No reason in particular.
This video contains the interview of a convict who has just been matched with the DNA found from a cold case. In 2014, Gary Dean Hilfiker was an inmate serving a life sentence for a murder he had committed in 1992. Hilfiker had accepted responsibility for his crimes during a period in his life when he suffered addictions to drugs and alcohol and thought all of that was behind him, until investigators informed him that his DNA had been tied to the murder of Flora Rundell in 1989. Hilfiker had been a taxi driver, and Rundell became a regular client since she relied on the taxi service as her main form of transportation. The two of them struck up a friendly acquaintance, and Rundell may have revealed more information than she should. One night in October, Hilfiker broke into Rundell's home to look for money. He cut the phone cord and stabbed her 11 times.
Yeah, can we get him unhandcuffed, please? Thank you. Hi, Gary.
How you doing?
Good. Go ahead, stand up for just a second. Where do you want? It's gonna be a while, or? Yeah, a little bit, I think. Okay. Slide down. Okay, that's good.
I'm just giving you one arm. Is that all right, or do you need both? He's comfortable with the other one.
If he could have both, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right, your seat. Thank you. Hey, Gary. My name is Ben, and this is my partner, Todd.
How you doing?
Good. Nice to meet you. I wanted to talk to you for just a minute, but before we do, I thought you might like a little
No,
something different, no?
I'm good. I'd just like to know how come I'm here.
Would you? Okay, well, let me pull some stuff out here. I think Todd, he's starving to death, so I can have one. Absolutely. Help yourself.
You sure you don't want one?
You want one? Not right yet. I'll get there in a minute, though, that's for sure.
I'm starving. I didn't eat breakfast.
I guess myself. So, you sure you don't want a soda or something there, Gary? Okay. How long have you been over here now?
I've been incarcerated, for the city man for 22 years.
For 22 years?
Yes.
So a long time.
Yeah.
When are you scheduled to get out?
I got an 8-year parole date.
An 8-year parole date. So is that 2020? About?
No.
2022.
Right, yeah.
Oh, 2022. Oh, that's right. We are in 2014. I think in 2012. Okay. So the reason I wanted to talk to you is your name came up in an investigation, and I wanted to talk to you about that. But obviously, you're in prison, you're incarcerated, so you are in custody. So I do need to read you your rights, and I'm sure you've heard that before, or what have you, seen it on TV.
Hilfiker is being interviewed about the murder of Flora Rundell in 1989. He is currently in prison for the murder of Marcia Haverty, which he committed in 1992.
So I just want to go through those with you first, and then I'd like to maybe talk to you if you're interested in talking to me about what I'm investigating. Okay? So you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. You have the right to consult with a lawyer before answering any questions, or to have a lawyer with you during any questioning. cannot afford a lawyer, one will be provided for you free of cost if you want one. Do you understand your rights as I have explained them to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you willing to talk with me without consulting or having an attorney present with you this time?
What's this about?
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. That, are you willing to talk to me without having somebody here so I can talk to you about it, or that's your choice? So you understand your rights as I've explained them. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you willing to talk with me without consulting or having a lawyer present with you?
I don't know what you...
Well, you can, during the questioning, if you don't want to talk to me once we start talking, you can stop if that's what you choose to do. But before I can talk to you, you need to either waive your rights, or you're saying you want an attorney with you before I start talking to you. So I leave that to you, but I obviously have to read this to you.
Yeah. Right, I understand.
Okay. So are you willing to talk with me without having or consulting a lawyer or having one present with you?
Up at this point, yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't know what this is about.
Okay. So that's a yes, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to talk to you about, Gary, is this. And before I do, I just want to kind of go over a little something with you. Just a little bit of just a side note story, okay? And then we'll kind of get into it. It was the other night, and the other night, before I went to bed, I looked outside, and it was a clear blue sky. I could see the stars. I went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I looked out the window, and I noticed that my driveway was wet, the sidewalks were wet, the street was wet, my neighbor's sidewalk was wet, the grass was wet. Obviously, what happened? It must have, what, overnight, you think? Probably rained, right? Because it's all covered, it's all wet. And, but I didn't see it rain. But I know it rained because clearly I could see that there was moisture all over the sidewalks and the driveway and the grass and the street and those types of things. But I didn't actually see it. But even though I didn't see it, I know that it had to have rained, right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. So what I want to talk to you about is a case that I'm investigating. That I'm not here to talk to you about if you did it. Okay. I didn't see you do it, and that's what I want to talk to you about. But I want to talk to you about a case that I'm investigating that I know you did, and see if, I always believe there's two sides to every story. And I always like to take both sides to the district attorney's office before I talk to them about cases.
The investigator is attempting to soften Hilfiker up to make a confession. While another murder will not make much difference to the time Hilfiker is serving, sometimes a convict will refuse to confess out of spite. If you haven't already, I highly recommend visiting my Patreon page for exclusive and ad-free videos, including the intense interrogation of an officer involved in a routine traffic stop gone wrong. Listen to the shocking events that unfold as an officer crosses the line and employs excessive force. This case offers a glimpse into the unsettling reality of when the actions of good people become entangled in tragic circumstances. Watch this video and explore many more at patreon.com/strangerstoriesplus.
And the case that I'm investigating happened back in 1989. And it involved a lady by the name of Flora Rundle. She was an elderly lady. She lived it was on the west side of the street. I believe during that time you were actually driving for UCAB. You were a cab driver at the time. And what happened is I believe it was on a Sunday, it was on October 22nd of 1989. We got a call over to her house from her sisters who had found her deceased in the house. And we investigated that case at that time. And since that time, obviously, technology and different things change, and investigative techniques change, and those types of things. And I was assigned the case. And since I've been assigned the case, I've actually been able to proceed forward with the case that they weren't able to years ago because of the technology and the different things. And what I was able to find is I was able to find your DNA So what I want to talk to you about, Gary, is this particular case, and I want to be able to take your side of the story. I know during that time you were involved in drugs. I know things were bad for you at that time, and I know since that time things got, I think, even worse for you because the incident that you had with the friend you were living with at the time. I think even during that time you had made some statements about, you know, the drugs and the alcohol kind of took over you, and probably very dependent on that at the time. But I also know since that time, Gary, that you've made some changes, and you've made some very good changes. I know you've been involved in religion. I know you have found Jesus Christ, our Savior, and I know you changed your ways. And I know in the past is the past, and I understand that. But by what I've seen and the progress that you've made over the years, and that's the reason I'm here to talk to you, is because I believe you're a changed person. I think you have changed your ways. I've seen that you've been involved in, I believe it's the Open Door. Is it the Open Door Church? Church of the Open Door?
Well, yeah.
And over on Ashton Avenue up there in the city, and then the Sunrise Baptist Church out there in West Valley, Kearns area, and even involved in the religious services here at the prison. And I've seen that, and I obviously could tell that, hey, you know what, Gary's made some very positive changes in his life. It's not, I don't think I'm talking to the same Gary that was around 20, 30 years ago. He's a different person. And by seeing how involved you were in the church and how much changing you have.
Since Hilfiker has turned to religion, it will be used to manipulate him into feeling as if he must confess.
Done for yourself. Probably this is something that's been weighing on your shoulders as well, knowing full well that in these churches, as we all know, I mean, part of repentance is admitting what we've done. And what I want to talk to you about is this particular case and what happened and why it happened.
Okay.
You're not a bad guy, Gary, and like I said, I'm here because you.
I'm a bad guy. That's why I'm in prison.
Well, but I think you've made some changes, and people that even have problems can change, and I think you're one of them, and that's one of the reasons why I've waited until now to come and talk to you. I have been watching over the past, and I have seen some very positive changes in you.
So then, whereabouts are you from? Are you from here?
Sorry, I apologize. So I'm from the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office.
All right.
So actually, we've since changed the name to Unified Police Department. But we're still a couple of old guys here. We're still Sheriff's Office. We've been around for about 25 years apiece, so.
Well, no, because I was like, well.
I'm sorry.
Reminds me, because see, man, I thought you was with the police.
No, and I'm so sorry. I failed to introduce myself properly, and my partner Todd. Yes, no, we're investigators from the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office now. Again, they call it Unified Police Department. But during that time, yeah, we did investigate this case, and like I said, I want to try to get some closure for the family, and I think where you made the changes you've made, I think you'd probably like to get some closure for the family as well.
I mean, I vaguely remember this person because I remember her from work and so forth and such.
Right.
But
Did you take her places sometimes?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is, I mean, I've done so much in my life. There's things I can't remember. The drugs, the alcohol, and stuff like this. I've had dreams about stuff. Wasn't you on Channel 13 or something recently? Or, well, no, it's been several months ago.
May have been. Gary,
Sure.
I've worked a lot of these cases.
But there was something, I don't know what's going on. It's really weird because there's bits and pieces of my life that I can't remember.
Sure.
There's some things I forgot. I mean, I'm fairly smart. I ain't the smartest guy in the box, but I'm fairly smart about stuff. But there's things I can't remember.
It has been nearly 25 years since the murder, and Hilfiker was under the influence most of the time period when it occurred. He isn't denying that he is guilty, but there is a possibility that he will not be able to recall many details.
Some things I wish I could remember, some things that obviously I probably don't want to remember.
Well, I can understand that. I think
One of my things in my crime, which I'm here for now, it took me many, many years to really recall everything. I know I've done some stuff out there, but I don't know if I did this. I can't say I did or didn't.
Well, and like I
I
said,
would like to think I did.
yeah, I can understand that, Gary. And that's I'm not here to talk to you about as far as if you did or didn't do it. Okay, I'm not. Like I said, there's no reason for your DNA to be underneath her fingernails. There's no reason for your DNA to be other places within her house. Okay, it's not a matter of if you did or didn't do it. And that's why I'm talking to you. I wanted to try to clear this up and find out why. I mean, what happened that day? What happened that night?
I ain't got a clue. I really don't. I can look at you and see it. Like I said, whenever I've had dreams, and like I said, I thought I seen you about 8 months ago, and this flash behind something clicked inside my head, and I just went, no.
Well, you recognize the name, right?
Yeah,
How do you recognize the name?
I don't know. I mean, just something clicked inside my head, and then whenever he was describing the way that she lived,
Rundell used taxis to get around town, and Hilfiker was her driver on multiple occasions.
way back, when was this, 78, before I come to prison the first time. I used to work at a bakery that was right across the street from there. Almost. It was about 2 foot south of
Right.
in Third West. It used to be called,
Was it the Old Home Bakery?
no. And they had one in Sugar House also, a small bakery, but this was a really big
The
bakery.
big one.
And I used to work there, and that's why whenever he was saying this, things started clicking in my head.
Did you know her during that time that you were working at the bakery?
No.
You
No.
never had any conversation with her?
No.
So the conversations kind of started when you started driving taxi for UCAP.
Right, that's where I
Started meeting her at because you were
Oh,
taking her places.
I can remember her from.
You do remember from taking her places.
I remember that name. That's why. I mean, what's the person? Because in fact, I was trying to read this whenever that you checked it around. Anyway,
Well, her name is
it's right down the side.
okay.
There's a picture of her. I think I told you 3510. I think it's 3518.
How often did you give her rides then?
No, she had. I think it was a Reams run. There was like a one or two Reams in the back or something like that.
Which Reams do you remember?
The one is, I almost said Sugar House. The one is also.
One on State, about 28 south there on the east side of the road. That's where you take her.
Yeah.
When she talked to you?
Oh yeah.
Was she very friendly that way to talk and visit?
She was, I mean, a friendly person.
Was she?
So, well, because of the fact I was a friendly guy
Sure.
at one time.
So you got to build a rapport a little bit with her throughout the times you've taken her up to Reams and back. Or a friendship, maybe, would you say? Not a friendship. But well enough to converse with one another.
Well, I talked to her as far as for generalities.
Right. Do you remember the house that she lived in?
No.
picture of the house. Just this little. A little brown house there.
I don't remember your house. It doesn't ring a bell for me.
Doesn't it?
What was that? I don't know. I just can't believe it. Like I said, I know I've done a lot of bad stuff out there. There's some things. I've ended up with somebody asked me that one day because I mentioned something about a child molester, and I said something about, well, yeah, man, he said, man, he did it one time or something, and I made a remark about, well, yeah, one time before that, he got caught, and somebody, a friend that was visiting with me said, well, and it's really weird, man, my friend said to me, how many people did you kill? And I just like, what? I don't know if I should say any more than that.
Hilfiker remembers Rundell, but not much else. Although he has been told there is DNA evidence to link him, there is no way for him to know whether that is true or not. It wouldn't be the first time that someone in his position has been talked into making a false confession.
Well, like I said, Gary, the reason I've come out here is I've noticed a change in what you were doing for yourself, and I had noticed the letters that have corresponded with from. I've looked on the website of the Church of the Open Door, and I've looked on the website of the Sunrise Church and stuff, and both those places actually seem very upfront places and very credible places, and I know that you participate in both of those churches. And I felt, for whatever reason, I don't know, but I felt that this was the time to come and talk to you, and you know, maybe a turning point in your life. And obviously, Gary, at this time you do. I see the position you're in, and you do. You're kind of at a crossroads, is where you're at. You're kind of trying to probably make a decision in your own mind which road to take. And one road is the easy road to where you can hide and but you're right, eventually it catches up to you. But the other road is a rough road, and you know that. The other road is a rough road, but at the end of that road, there is some peace at the end of that road, and that's the right road. And that's the road that you take responsibility. You're willing to get some closer to the family members. You're willing to get some closer to the community and willing to stand up and take responsibility, which I think with the changes you've made in your own life, I believe at this time you're ready to do that. I really do. You are a different person today than you were back then, and I understand the drugs and the alcohol, they do, and they continue to take people, and we see it all the time. But I do believe you've passed that point. You've overcome that problem or that trial in your life. And I think it's time that you come forward and allow the family to be able to put some closure behind them and not have to wonder all the time who took the life of their grandma and who took the life of their sister. I know you have some children as well, and I'm sure that if something happened to you, your children, or to your parents in the past, I know they've since passed, but would want to know who's responsible for that. And why. And whether it was the drugs or the alcohol at the time, at least they have an answer.
Gary, it's like what Ben was saying when we first got in here. He didn't see it rain, but he got up and he knew that it had rained. It's the same with this case. It's not that we don't know who did it. We know the who, what, why, where, when, and how. But at some point, we've got to go back to the family. And you've already been through the court process once. And I'm sure you had to stand up and you had to give your apology to the family in the last case. But in this case, wouldn't it be a lot better for us to be able to go to the family and say, you know what, he stood up and he told us everything that happened. Otherwise, you're going to have to do that in court. But it would be so much better if we can go to them and say, you know what, this guy's a stand-up guy. This guy isn't the same guy that he was clear back in 1989 when this happened. And it's going to go a lot better for you that way.
Well,
no, ask. I don't want you to
just trying to.
I know, this is a lot to take in right now. I agree. I think you should have a donut. It is a lot to take in right now, Gary.
I'm still trying to understand something. Well, I mean, everything, like I told you, whenever my friend asked me how many people have I killed, it struck a chord with me. I'm like, what? Why would you even ask me that question? This hasn't been in my mind until just the past year or two. And I've had, yeah, I am a proponent Christian, and I'm proud of that. In fact, man, this officer who escorted me over here he is himself one too.
Right.
In fact, he's playing the song came on the radio, and I asked him whether or not he heard it yet. He goes, no, I haven't heard it. And just as we're coming down the road, it comes on. And then, wow. And I don't like to think I'm the same man I was. I've had some moments in prison whereabouts I've had to bring out the old guy.
Sure.
Because in prison,
Survival. Sure. Yeah, survive. Mm-hmm.
But to be a man in Christ, you're right, there's things, you know, I don't know. I mean, those things I gotta do. And if I did this, I could own it. But like you said, you seen it, right? Well, what was it you said that you seen it around was way out this way? I don't understand how come. Well, you said that my teen neighbors are, so.
We're not going to lie to you about that stuff, Gary. That's we can't change the facts. Right. As much as we might want to change facts, we can't. And things that I did 20, 30 years ago, I can't change that.
Hilfiker is struggling to accept the reality of his situation. He believed he had already confronted all of his crimes, and he is now having to come to terms with the fact that he killed another person.
We can't change any of those things, whether they were good things or bad things. And I think Gary, you're struggling with the new Gary versus the old Gary because and Satan does that. You know that. Satan tries to bring up the past. We're not Satan, but we're bringing you facts that happened. And I don't think that I don't think you're going to get away with telling us that you don't remember that part of it, because I just don't think people don't remember that part. And we can show you some pictures to try to jog your memory about some of the stuff and things like that. More than willing to do that.
I don't want to see pictures. I've seen pictures of the crime on me for.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to gross you out or anything like that, but we can't change those facts, Gary. It's like Ben was talking about earlier.
So then, what do you want?
What I want, Gary, is I just want you to tell me why.
I don't have a reason.
Can you tell me how it began? Can you tell me about it?
I can't, because I don't remember. I mean, as I said, there's things that have came up in my mind, things I've heard names and triggers, and there's little trigger things that made me stop and go there.
What do you remember about Flora?
As I said, after you explained where the house was and stuff like this, I started thinking about the address. And I'm looking at this house and I'm still trying to picture what's around this house, but like I said, she was just a customer who took, who called taxi cabs to good places to go to a doctor, Reams.
Every day?
No.
Once a week?
I don't know, it depended on the doctor's appointments or whenever she needed to go to the store or something.
Were you kind of a regular for her then? No. They would just send whoever's available at the time.
Well,
Is that how it works? Or?
I worked at the airport. I worked off the airport, until the evening hours.
Okay. And
So that I didn't run her a lot, but once in a while, a dispatcher might say, I need a cab in South Salt Lake, and I might be there, and they'll be like, hey man, swing by Reams, let me pick that up. Okay, I'll swing by Reams.
I see.
I didn't pick her up often or every time she went somewhere.
Sure.
But it was just a thing that she was a customer and people.
But you knew her well enough because you'd taken her a few times anyway to know her that, to know that it wasn't just a one-time thing or a couple of times.
Hilfiker targeted Rundell specifically because he knew her well enough that he thought that there was a reasonable chance he could get away with robbing her.
It had been multiple times, and that throughout a spread out a period of time. Right, okay. What else do you remember about Flora?
Nothing really.
About how old was she?
How was I at that time? 89. I was, 32? Almost 33. I would have thought maybe she was 65 or 70.
Okay. What was going on in your life at that time then?
Everything wrong.
I don't know what that means, Gary.
I wasn't aware of something I learned in prison this time, is that I have an addictive personality trait, disorder. You know how some people can go out and drink recreationally?
Mm-hmm.
Some people, and I had friends out there that have used cocaine, and they have never gotten in trouble, except for the possession of the cocaine from.
Right.
But as far as to use it and don't commit crimes, don't do nothing wrong, and they have never gotten in trouble with it. Whereas I learned how the recreational word can be in my vocabulary. I was just spun out of control. The last 3 years I spent out there. The last 2 were really bad.
So what do you mean really bad? What do you mean?
I had lost a 6-year relationship because of drugs. My health was shot.
The broken romantic relationship that Hilfiker spoke of was the catalyst for the murder of his friend Haverty. He had fallen into a depression after the breakup, and Haverty confronted him about what his addiction cost him. The two fought, and he ended up stabbing her 10 times before dousing her in kerosene and setting her on fire.
At the time I got arrested, I weighed about 135 pounds. The drugs had me at the end.
Were you still working then?
Yeah. I was a functioning addict.
You was able to do it then. How long did you work at Ute then? Was that
6 years.
6 years? Did you work at another cab company prior to that, or did you always work for Ute?
No, I drove for Yellow Cab for just a short while.
So Ute cab, is that or so? So a lot of things going on during that time. You
Yeah,
know,
it was just
drugs, alcohol, and you were able to function. You just, was it like afterwards then is when you'd be able to function during that, stay away from it during your shift and then get back on it right after?
Right. I go to work, I make some money, because if I wasn't stealing, robbing, or something to support my habit, I'd work.
Work.
And as soon as I made I made enough rather than park my cab and I'd go out.
Right. And then get what you needed. And then back the next day. Did you work day shift then usually, or
I just worked until I figured I made enough. And
so you could kind of pick your shifts then.
Right.
Would they let you work like 12-hour shifts at a time if you wanted to, or would they limit that?
I was working at one time. I was working between 13 and 15 hours.
Wow.
I work a day, could go home, sleep, and get up and go play for a day.
Okay. So is it you kind of your own business type of thing? Is that how that works? So did you have your own cab then too?
No, I drove for somebody who owned several cabs.
Okay. And you had to pay them as a portion or something.
Yeah.
But you're still able to work out okay as far as paying them and still supporting yourself.
Yeah.
So during that time, you said you had a breakup.
Yeah.
Was that with a girlfriend or is that the one that you had children with?
No.
Okay.
No, man, I had children from my wife, and she has since passed away. All my children are all grown. I've got grandchildren now.
Wow. How many grandchildren do you have?
I got four.
Four.
That I'm aware of.
And how many children do you have?
I got three from my wife and one from a woman Springville.
Okay. And I noticed, I mean, obviously I wanted to look in a little bit to kind of what was going on with you out here before I came to talk to you. I know with...
The investigator is asking questions to which he already has the answers. Part of this is to build a connection with Hilfiker, and it will also help him to determine when Hilfiker is lying or withholding information.
Okay. Because I know at some point you had a problem. Did it have to do with the stepfather?
Yeah.
Did that ever get resolved? Is that guy still in prison?
No.
He's out.
Yeah.
Did that ever get resolved?
I know where the stepfather is now.
Okay.
Where's he at?
I can do too.
You don't like him much, I can tell.
Why'd you look at me like that?
I
just said that.
I can just tell you got
You looked
something
at me
going on.
and said, "Where's he at?" I know where he is.
Yeah, you got some anger towards him. I can see that. I don't blame you. I would.
It goes like this. My victim's son. He's a neat kid. He's a lot more of a man than what I'll ever be. Because I had a bad dream one night, and I dreamed that this kid caught me as I pulled over from here and pulled a gun and shot me. And somebody goes, "How do you feel about that?" I'm like, "If somebody killed me, if somebody killed my mom, or else killed my dad, well, you know, man, that's what's got coming." My victim's son, last time I went to the board, him and his wife had written me before I went to the board. I hadn't heard from these people, and they wrote me. And my victim's son he was a kid whenever this happened. And his wife just wanted to know why, what happened. And so then I thought the case was going to end up with him back. And I never heard back from him. Which, of course, I didn't expect to.
Right.
Because it was just what happened. They're just saying here that these people are gone.
Sure.
We just want closure now. Whenever I went to the board the last time, we always get a victim statement that comes in our board packets. And it was just, we're putting this all behind us. Whatever the board sees fit is what we're good with.
Wow.
Or something along that line that he didn't have any animosity with me.
Wow.
Haverty's son has decided he is not going to try to block Hilfiker's parole. Often the family of the victim understandably tries to ensure that the person who murdered their loved one is never freed.
No, my son's father, though, he paid his.
He did that? And you're satisfied with what he paid?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But whenever he paroled, and at the time I was still talking to my son, and I have friends who work in corrections, who just said that, and I wanted to know where this guy was. Well, somebody went to him and told him, the best thing you can do is make sure that you're as far away from that kid as what you can be. So then he's in Ogden. My son at the time, he lived in Springfield, so
quite a ways away.
He's on opposite ends of the state.
Obviously, he listened to somebody then, huh?
Yeah.
How about your other children?
They're all grown.
Do you see him or hear from him?
No.
No contact at all?
I don't know. My ex-wife, whenever she passed away, somebody said, man, this should make my kids swear that they would never come out here to see me, or they would never contact me. My ex-wife and I, we're cut from the same cloth. We can be pretty vengeful if that we choose to be, so.
That's too bad, though.
Yeah.
But you never know. Just like you talked about that young man changing, your victim's young son changing, your children could change too.
Yeah.
Because like you said, that's a lot for him to come to the board with him and his wife and basically leave the board.
He didn't show up at the board hearing.
Oh, you wrote a letter?
Right.
Still pretty good to send a letter and say whatever the board sees fit, we're satisfied with. I mean, there's not many people out there that would do that.
Yeah.
Sounds like to me maybe he's forgiven you. And it kind of sounds like by what you did and your changes you made in your life between that, it sounds like he's forgiven you and
What are we going to next with this?
well, one thing I'm going to be asked, Gary, is this, and that is, obviously the next step is to go meet with the district attorney's office, and one of the questions they will ask me is, did you talk to Gary? And of course I'll say yeah, and they're going to ask me, is Gary cooperating with us in this? And I want to be able to tell them yes. That's the next step. I want to be able to say, yeah, Gary took responsibility and explain what's going on. I would much rather do that than go to him and say, listen, I begged Gary to talk to me, and Gary just said he didn't remember anything about it. I would much rather be able to go tell him the truth. And I understand that, like, in your mind, you're probably thinking, well, either way, I'm here. But it's kind of maybe how you spend your time, too. I mean, think about that. I mean, you've made some changes in your life. You're a different person than you were 30 years ago. I know during that time with the first case that you had, I know that was tough for you at that time. It took you a lot of years to come forward, but wouldn't it be nice for people to actually see a change in you since you have found Jesus Christ, and that you have changed your life around to actually prove it to them? And by proving it, say, listen, the old Gary was the one that didn't remember anything, but the new Gary is taking responsibility. And like Todd said, I mean,
The investigator uses Hilfiker's faith to induce guilt. While his history shows that a lack of memory is plausible, it is an excuse that is so often used it cannot be believed outright.
I think you're kind of going back to that old Gary here because you're wanting to not remember and wanting to try to block things out versus the new Gary who's a stand-up person. And the new Gary is somebody that probably tells people who you are housed with, you have to take responsibility for what you've done. That's the new Gary. But I understand. I mean, things are eating at you, and I'm sure this is a case that's weighed on your mind for a long time. But I want to be able to go tell them, Gary, that, you know what, this is the new Gary that I talked to today. This is a guy that's changed. This isn't the guy that I've read about in the old case that happened back in '92. This is a changed Gary. This is a different person that we're talking about here. That's what I want to be able to tell them. That all that stuff, as far as your involvement with the pastor out here at the prison, your involvement with the Sunrise and the Open Door, I want to be able to tell that, listen, that has made a difference for Gary. That has changed him. Because he's not the same person as, and he's not giving us the same story as he did in the Salt Lake City case back in '92. He's a different person, and here's why. That's what I want to tell him.
I know I did something here because there's things that just snap whenever I see this thing about these things. There's no explanation. I don't understand why. There's a lot of things I've done I don't know why I did.
I think we can all say that. I think we can all say that we've done some things that we're not proud of. Myself included. But like Todd said, I can't change what I've done in the past, but what I can do is in the future is I can show that I've changed, and how I show is by what I say and how I act. I can't be the same person I was 20 or 30 years ago either. I have to be different, and I have to prove that I'm different to people, so people can see that in me, even though they may know some of the mistakes that I've made. I think by the way I carry myself and the way I interact with people, and being upfront and taking responsibility for things, I hope people see and look at the past and go, that was his past, that he's a different person today, because back then he didn't maybe come clean on everything, but today he does. He's willing to take criticism. He's willing to take responsibility for mistakes he's made and continues to make. I continue to make mistakes, and to this day I take responsibility, and I know it's tough. I don't like getting criticized, and I don't like getting pointed out when I've made a mistake myself, but I've changed, and I feel like I've changed, and I'm trying to do better.
What do you want from me? What do you want me to say?
I want you to tell me the story of what happened with Laura. That's what I want.
I'm still trying to understand.
I think you know bits and pieces of it. Even if you may not remember every detail, Gary, I do think you remember some of the story.
Right.
And that's what I want. I want you to tell me everything you remember. That's what I'd like you to do, because I want to take that to them, and I want them to see that you're a changed person. That's what I want to do. I want to not just go up and say, well, all the church stuff and everything else is just a big facade for Gary. That's just a big show that he's doing. Because I don't think it is.
Ain't no show for me.
I want to be able to say, he is a changed person. And you look at the case in '92, and you look at the case that I'm investigating in '89, and you can clearly see that he has changed. He has changed his ways. He has taken responsibility. Back in '92, you didn't take responsibility for everything. It took a while, like you said, for you to kind of come to terms with that. But I want to show that you have changed. Not only do I want to show that to the district attorney's office, I want to show that to the judge, potentially a jury, and more importantly, a family. I want to show a family because they'll know what happened in the past, but I want to show that family that you've made some changes. And this is why you've made changes, because the old Gary would have given me the I don't knows, I don't remembers, and I can prove that to him by what happened in '92. But the '89 case, I want to show them that, listen, this is a changed person now. He made some mistakes in the past, but now he's trying to rectify those. And part of rectifying it, he knows, is being upfront and honest and taking responsibility.
Hilfiker is standing firmly by his previous claim that he cannot remember the events of 1989.
That's the Gary I want to show people. That's the Gary I want to walk out of here today and be able to say, that guy is a changed guy. Yeah, he's made some mistakes, but he's changed his ways, and he's proven that he's changed his ways, because the old Gary would have never talked to us about anything. The changed Gary has taken responsibility.
Gary, there's things that we know happen because of the physical evidence. There's some things that we don't know. Between the three of us here, I think we could probably paint the whole picture, but we can't start that process. You have to.
The only thing I could, why would I do this other than, I mean, unless I went in to steal something. obviously, she did live on the east side of Salt Lake. I mean, not a home that you would go burglarize.
Even though they're not on the east side of Salt Lake, doesn't mean people don't have stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, the residential area.
I understand what you're saying, but I mean, there was a conversation between you and her, and that led you to believe that maybe she did have something.
Even if Rundell did not have much money, Hilfiker may not have been in a state to think that through logically. He may not have been able to wait until payday, or he might have needed extra at the time.
So what did you take out of there?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember the whole thing. I mean, like you said, I'm still looking at this house, and it doesn't really click for me. Her name or person,
If we don't show you pictures of her, but we show you some other pictures of the house, do you think that might help jog your memory?
like I said, why else would my DNA be there? Like what you said, that I was there. The only thing I can think of is that I broke in to steal something.
And during that time, you indicated earlier you were involved in drugs and alcohol. So what maybe would you have stolen then, do you think?
I don't know. Robert is, I don't know.
Robert for what, though? Do you think she used drugs at that time, or alcohol?
I wouldn't have a clue about that.
Right, but you're kind of indicating that maybe you robbed her for something, and I'm just trying to kind of figure out what you think maybe you robbed her for. Well, maybe you guys had a conversation. I mean, obviously, when you're taking her to Reams or to the doctor, there's got to be some type of conversation going on. And I know I've read, and you taxi guys are about the best when it comes to talking to people. You can break the ice better than anybody I know. So I think when you're talking to one another, you're probably discussing things, and maybe she let you believe that she had something that you may have had interest in. And during that time in your life, things weren't going well for you. It sounds like you were working hard to try to get to your next fix. Was there a discussion maybe you two had about something that she had?
I can tell you that now. It's been,
Well, I know.
30 years. Well, it's 25.
Yeah.
You said something, Gary, that makes me think that you know a little bit more than what you're telling us, because neither Ben or I said anything about breaking into the house. We know that the house was broken into, but nobody said that it was broken into. So you would know that, and you're the one that brought up being broken into. How did you break in?
Well, like you said, I mean, why else would I be there? My DNA was there. I mean, I'm not going to be.
Yeah, but houses, people go into houses all the time to take things. Doesn't mean that they broke something to get in.
Well, I mean, break into a house. Whenever you burglarize a house, you break into a house.
Not always. Especially if somebody's home.
Well,
You can knock on the door.
I don't use the word burglarize all the time, but to break in, obviously, I broke into someone's home.
You did. How did you do it? Did you go through a window? Did you go through the door? Did you do something with the utilities? Did you do anything like cut a phone line or anything like that? What did you do to get into that house, Gary? Again, would it help to see some of the pictures without showing her? I don't want to show you her, but would it help to see some of the pictures?
some of the things that you said. I remember when I was a little criminal many, many years ago, even before I came to Utah, I used to do stuff like that.
Like what?
What you said about cutting phone lines or cutting the utility lines. I used to go flip off the power to go into certain places and stuff like this.
Okay.
That's why I learned.
But we need to talk about this.
Okay.
Gary, we need to talk about this instead of what you were doing before. I mean, like Ben said before,
I guess I did it. Well, I mean, you said I was there. Obviously, this case, for me, it's something in my brain that makes me, it causes triggers.
mm-hmm. That's why I'm wondering if seeing
I
some of
remember
these
something.
pictures, if seeing some of these pictures may help you remember something else. I do not, Gary, I do not want to put anything in your head about this. I don't want to feed you information about things that happened, because that doesn't do you any good and it doesn't do me any good. So we need to talk about what happened, but it has to come from you. Like Ben said, it's not a matter of if you did it or didn't do it. We know that you did it. It's a matter of you telling us how you did it, so it matches up with the evidence. Does that make sense to you? That way Ben can go to the judge and he can go to the family and say, yeah, Gary told us the truth.
And you may not know every detail, Gary. I understand that. And we're not here expecting that you can tell us from A to Z. But I do believe that you could probably tell us maybe B and D and F and G and I and J and L and N.
Like I said, there's something about it. I remember the name. I remember little things that jumped up at me. And,
Like what?
well, when I first heard about this several months back, something triggered in my head.
And what triggered?
The name,
The name did?
right?
And what did it remind you of? Did it remind you of something that you had done?
It was just like the name recall at first. It's like I remember the name now. And then, like I said, I've had dreams about things. And maybe I did do this. And obviously I did. We weren't going to discuss that.
Did you have a dream about Flora?
Just weird stuff.
Like what?
Stuff I don't understand.
Can you tell me about those dreams?
I can't. I mean, it's like I'm there, but I'm not there, sort of thing.
Right.
And it's just,
What were you doing when you were there?
I don't know. I mean, it's just bits and pieces of stuff. But I don't know.
Hilfiker's memory is fragmented, according to him. There are things that have triggered some small memories, but nothing to give him a larger picture of what happened. The difficult part is that showing him anything might implant false memories or prompt him to admit to things that aren't true. Doing so could damage the case.
If you want me to, I will be. I mean, as soon as I talk to an attorney, I'll be glad to make an Alfred plea or something. If that's what you want me to do.
To make it what?
Alfred plea.
An Alfred plea.
Because I can't.
Gary, you need to understand, we're not here to just wipe this case off of our books. These are
No.
human beings here that we're.
I'm not saying that we're going to wipe it off the books.
So
I'm going to stay in prison now until I die anyway.
I don't know that. I do not know that, and I don't know that you know that.
I know.
Because again, Gary, this is 1989. 1989. That was a long time ago, and that was before the first one.
Yeah, but still. Would you like me to write something to the family? I'd be glad to write something to the family.
Would you be willing to?
I'd be glad to talk to them at the sheriff's department, even if you want me to.
If you'd be willing to write a letter to them, I'd provide you the pen and pad right here to write something if you
Well,
will.
I'd be worried about writing something like that. Just,
I'm sorry, I thought I misunderstood that.
well,
like I said, Gary, earlier, is
Obviously, I've done it. And I don't know why I would do it other than to steal, to rob, to burglarize, break in. Somewhere up the road, I must have got the impression that she had some money or had something. Because I'm sitting here trying to figure this out.
So when you got inside, what happened? Did she fight you? Was there a fight between the two of you? Or did you just ask her for, you had just mentioned some money. Did you ask her for some money? Did you ask her to give me some money? I mean, you obviously knew her and had taken her back and forth. Maybe you just picked her up from Reams and brought her back and asked her for, as you brought up, maybe asked her for some money. Did you do that? And did she tell you no?
Well, obviously there's a struggle.
Tell me about that. Did she tell you no when you asked for money? How did the struggle start?
I said obviously there's a struggle because you said there was DNA under her fingernails. But
There's not a lot of rooms in that house, Gary. What room did the struggle take place in?
I don't know, wherever, at the front, at the back, I don't know. Obviously it happened.
When you thought about this, and you say you've had some dreams about it, what are the dreams? What are the dreams telling you that happened? Because you obviously, before we ever showed up, felt like you had done this with the name and everything. So
It was weird because what you said too about and so and I keep looking at this house, and it is a small house. It's probably got what? 3 rooms, maybe 4 in it.
I don't even know
Well,
how many
no.
rooms there are.
Total rooms, you mean?
Right.
Probably. I think there's 4
I'm
or
looking
3 or
at
4.
how big this house is.
Yeah.
The dreams Hilfiker experienced may contain some of the details, although it is also possible that his mind has filled in some of the blanks with events from Haverty's murder.
So what are the dreams?
It would just, I don't know, it'd be like a panorama, just a thing, to where that I'm seeing bits and pieces.
What kind of things would you see?
And whenever that we talked about this, about the fact I'm not the same guy, and I don't want to be the same guy anymore. And I even prayed about this, like, she showed me something else, that if I did this.
And here we are.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Kind of like on your way over here from the prison, and you're just asking the guard about the song. All of a sudden, the song comes on the radio. I don't know. It seems to me. I'm a believer as well, and it seems to me that you've kind of had some signs coming your way.
Yeah.
You've asked the Lord if you asked about it, and here we are, and you're asking Him about the song, and here's something else. Is it coincidence? I don't know. Or is it something higher than that? I tend to believe it's higher than that, but that's my belief as well.
The only thing I could say that happened was a struggle, because I went there to rob her, I guess. And I say, I guess, because I can't really remember that purposely
Did you cut the utility lines?
I probably did.
Did you go in the front door or back door?
Where this house is, I'd say probably went in the front door.
Why would you say that?
Because it's in a commercial area. And by looking at this picture, it don't look like there's anything on either side of it.
Would you be willing to look at some of these other pictures and see if it jogs your memory some? I won't show you pictures of her.
Sure.
Might just have it here.
Okay. Do you want one of these drinks? You're more than welcome, because I'm going to have one.
Sam.
Any of that stuff, the stuff you've been seeing in your dreams?
What's a gas meter?
What's that?
What's a gas meter?
Yeah. But I think maybe the significance of it, you talked about maybe the lines. Looks like there might be some utility lines there.
Would you have used a type of a weapon?
Yeah,
Like what?
a knife.
Okay.
Because, well, the crime I'm working on, I carried a keyboard.
Okay.
A K-bar.
Right.
Is that the name brand of a knife or something?
Right.
Okay. Here's just some pictures of the outside of the house.
The investigators have come prepared with pictures of the house's interior and exterior. Hilfiker looks them over for anything familiar.
That's some more on the outside as well. Sorry.
Bring back anything, Gary?
The house looks, I mean, there's things there I recollect.
Let me ask you this. Would you have done this during the day or night?
Probably at night. During the day, that's a big busy area.
What are you thinking now, Gary, after looking at those pictures?
It's
Does it look familiar?
yeah,
It does. Do you remember what time of night it was? Dark outside?
yeah,
Would have been dark.
yeah. 1989, where was I at?
1989. I think you were still driving for you, weren't you?
Yeah.
Did you take the cab home with you at night?
Yeah.
So you had, is that what you used to drive around in, even off duty?
Well, it depends if I was out. If I went out, to go to party of it.
What would you drive then?
I could rent a car from you as well.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So I was just going to say, so something like where maybe you've gone over to her residence, would you just park your cab down the street or something? Or would you have rented a car for?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
So when
if I went to her residence,
You said it was nighttime probably when you went to her house. If you went to her house at night, do you think you would have taken the taxi, or do you think you would have taken a rental car?
Well, it depends on what the night was, where I was at. But then, more than likely, there wouldn't have been a taxi cab. It would have been a rental car.
During that time, do you remember the days you were working, or days
No.
you take off? I mean, would you generally work the weekends, or would you?
No, I didn't work weekends.
You didn't work weekends. So you take, what, Friday, Saturday off, or Saturday, Sunday?
I used to work every other day. And Sundays, I didn't work anything.
Okay, so you take usually Saturday off, and then have Sunday off.
Right.
Okay. Do you think, as far as when this would have happened, do you think this would have happened on one of your days off?
Yeah.
So on a Saturday or a Sunday?
Well, you said it happened when?
Well, we got the call on Sunday afternoon. So based on what you're telling me, I'm just speculating, and please correct me if I'm wrong. You're telling me if you have Saturday and Sunday off, and you would have done this on a night that you're not working, that my guess then would be Saturday night is when this would have probably occurred. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And on that Saturday night, would you have had the taxi where you'd park it down the street or in a parking lot? I mean, it's a commercial area, as you know. Or would you have gone to the trouble to rent a car?
Like I said, sometimes I rented a car, sometimes I took
Just
a
kind of
cab.
depend on what you had going on for the weekend. You don't remember on this?
Hilfiker had no set habit when it came to the car he drove, so unless there was a witness, it would be impossible to say which he drove that night.
Okay. And the knife you're talking about, how big was the blade? Like a 4-inch, or I mean, was it pretty good? Like
It was a good size.
good size knife.
Was it a folding knife or?
I folded knife.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those K-bars you have in sheets, that are
Right. No, this was a K-bar that folded.
okay.
And the handle was about like that.
You're kind of motioning about a 4-inch blade. Does that sound?
4 to 6.
4 to 6-inch blade. Okay. What color was it? Was the handle and stuff on? Is it black or brown?
I said white.
A white.
White.
Was it kind of like the bone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good looking knife then. And Gary, I do appreciate what you've provided. I really do. The question I have now, however, though, is when you went into her house, would she have been awake or asleep?
And she was probably asleep
Probably sleeping.
at that time of night,
Did she wake up when she heard you come in?
I imagine.
And she obviously recognized you from taking her places.
Right.
Tell you to get out of the house or ask what you were doing there?
I don't know, maybe she didn't recognize me even.
Did you have something covering yourself up a little bit? Maybe a hat or something on?
Hilfiker isn't confessing so much as he is agreeing that their suggestions could be correct.
Just maybe because you've been sleeping, kind of being groggy and stuff, not.
Right.
So she didn't say your name or anything. Did she ask what you were doing? Don't remember. When you got inside there and she confronted you, what was she wearing?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Did she have clothes on? Or was she standing there
I
naked?
ain't got a clue. I ain't got a clue.
Okay. Did you ask her for something? It sounds like you were looking to get something. Did you ask her for anything that you can remember? I mean, obviously you broke in for something, so Did you ask her where
I said,
something
"Ask her
was
for
at?
some money."
For some money? And did she tell you where some money was at?
I don't remember.
You don't remember.
I mean, obviously there's a struggle, a fight, struggle. This thing, he just said that you were scared to death, and he was asking about the knife.
How much money did you get?
It was like a couple $100 there
What was it?
in a purse, I think.
Where at in the purse?
I don't remember exactly.
You what?
I remember there was a little wallet thing. There was a little wallet.
Either Hilfiker is starting to remember details or telling the investigators what he thinks they want to hear. He believes he was there because of the DNA evidence, and they aren't going to be happy until he confesses.
Like a coin purse or something, or just a wallet itself?
A little bit, a billfold of that thing.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't a coin purse or purse or clutch. It was just a little billfold.
And how much was in there?
Just a couple $100. From what I can recall now. There wasn't a whole lot.
So was the money in the billfold thing itself then, or was it somewhere else inside the purse?
It was inside the billfold.
In the billfold, okay. Any other money that you located in the house? You think just a couple $100?
That's all I can remember. I mean, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't anything there.
How did you know that she would have had some money there? Did she ever talk about that?
She must have said something.
She must have said something. What did she say?
I mean, something was said that made me think that she had money.
What did you do with the money?
Well, I probably bought some more drugs.
Probably bought more drugs. So what happened after you got the money out of the billfold?
Left.
You left? Did something happen between you and Flora before you took the money then?
No.
So how did she die?
I stabbed her. I guess according to this, that she died of being stabbed to death.
Was that before or after you took the money?
It probably was after.
Another indication that Hilfiker is probably just making this up as he goes along is the way he keeps using the word probably. He's slowly picking up what would be most likely in the scenario and hoping that will be enough for them. This only works unless there is information to contradict any point of his story.
Probably after. So you stabbed her after you took the money or before? I'm sorry, just not understanding. Just trying to follow you.
I was trying to figure this out myself.
So you get inside the house. She's probably in bed, gets up, confronts you. You take the money and then she gets stabbed, or you stab first and then you take the money?
I believe it was after.
After you took the money, you stabbed her? And did she say something to you during that time? Obviously she was upset.
Can't recall.
Did she recognize you at that point?
Maybe.
Did she ever call you by your first name? Did she know you by your first name? She didn't. Were you afraid that she may have recognized you?
Obviously.
Is that why you stabbed her?
Yeah.
Because you thought she may have recognized you from taking her places and
Yeah.
would have told on you. Did you take anything else out of the house?
Not that I can recall, no.
Have you told anybody about this before, Gary?
No.
Whatever happened to the knife?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I lost track of it. I think it was right before this homicide.
Okay. Just kind of got lost somewhere. I know you said you didn't remember. I just wanted to ask you again, though, just to see if I didn't jog your memory maybe a little bit. But when Flora got up out of bed and confronted you, where were you standing at that time? Do you remember in the house? I mean, what part of the house would you have been standing in when she confronted you?
Right by the front door.
By the front door. And prior to that, had you already cut the utility line?
Yes.
Before you went in?
Yes.
Okay. For fear that she'd get a hold of the phone and call?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in the living room. How long are you able to start looking through things before she confronts you, or do you think she hears you right when you come in?
I think she got up as soon as I came in the front door.
As soon as you came in the front door. And do you remember, when she sees you, did you say anything to her, like go back to your bedroom, or is there any kind of a conversation going on between the two of you?
I just told her that I wanted some money.
Told her you wanted some money? Okay. And what did she say?
I don't remember.
Do you remember anything she said throughout the course of this?
She might have told me to get out of here.
To get out?
What are you doing here?
Do you think maybe when she said, "What are you doing?" do you think that maybe kind of made you start thinking maybe she knows who I am?
It's possible.
And when you're standing in the living room and she comes out and approaches you, do you remember what she had on? I mean, was she clothed, or was she just bare naked?
The investigator is trying to get Hilfiker to reveal details that only the killer or someone with access to the crime scene would know.
I don't remember. I imagine she would have been wearing something.
Would have been wearing something. Okay. And after you got, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know how she slept or whatever.
But what you recall, she probably had something on. Just don't know what.
Yeah.
So then after you took the money, you indicated that that's when you stabbed her. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then how many times do you think you stabbed her?
I don't know.
More than once?
Probably.
And if she would have been wearing anything, would you have removed that from her?
No.
You would have taken any of her clothing off?
No.
And you know where the stabbing occurred at? I mean, when you guys got in the confrontation and you began stabbing her, where was this at? I mean, was it in the living room still, or bedroom, or what part of the house do you remember that being at?
In the front room?
That's That's where it started. It was in the front room.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did it end?
I don't know.
I mean, when it ended, I mean, so you stabbed her the first time. You said maybe more than one. So you stabbed her the first time. I mean, obviously there's something going on after you first stabbed her the first time. Was there obviously she fighting back, or was she screaming at you to get out, or?
Like I said, there's a struggle, I'm sure.
Do you think the struggle would have gone throughout the house or just in the living room?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
I mean, do you think, was it all, I apologize, was it all confined to the living room area where you guys were fighting, or? Well, where was her purse at?
In the front room.
In the front room. Was it on the floor, on the sofa, or where would it have been in the front room?
I don't remember a chair.
Remember a chair there?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it on the chair?
Yeah.
I was sitting on, like on the seat of the chair?
Yeah.
What color was her purse?
I
Don't remember.
It was all black.
Oh, black. Okay. What color was the billfold that the money came out of? Don't remember. Did you take the billfold too, or did you just take the
I took
money
the
out of it?
billfold and threw it away.
You did?
Yeah.
Was there any medications in her purse?
I didn't.
You didn't look there. Okay.
This level of detail would be almost impossible to recall after 25 years. No one would remember the exact contents of their own bag from that long ago, much less one that belonged to someone else.
And you think everything happened right in that area there? Did you, after you found that in the living room, did you look throughout the rest of the house for any more money? You might have. Did you find any more money anywhere else in the house?
No.
You didn't find any more money? That was the only money was in the purse, in the billfold.
Yeah.
When you left, did you leave through the front door, or did you leave through the back door?
I imagine I went out the front door.
Out the front door. And after you had left, did you see anything on the news about this that had happened?
I didn't really watch the news.
Did you ever hear about that? Did you ever hear that this had happened though to her, to Flora?
I might have.
Anybody at work talk about it?
No.
No.
No. I mean, tattoo drivers are not really social people. I mean, as far as to talk to each other.
Each other. Okay. So I know you said it would have been dark when you went in there. Do you think it would have been before midnight or after midnight on that Saturday?
Probably right around that time.
Right around midnight. How long do you think you were inside the house from the time you got there? You indicated cutting the utility to the time actually you left. How long do you think that was in duration? I mean, half hour, 45 minutes, 10 minutes?
Could have been long.
Could have been long.
You're remembering something, I can tell. What is it that you're remembering, Gary?
As we discuss it, I see it in my head.
So you're remembering all of this as we talk about it? So do you remember everything about this now?
If I'm sick,
You need a garbage can? No? Okay.
yeah,
Do you want
How about a Sprite?
a Sprite? Yeah.
Oh, check. Take a drink of that. There you go.
Can's fine.
I haven't had a tan for a long time.
They're hardly
Yeah,
making them.
cans.
Seeing that this is probably the most they will be able to get out of him, the investigators ease up on Hilfiker and bring the interview to a close for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, cans inside.
Yeah.
Well, they're hardly making them anymore. Most of us come in that plastic
Plastic, yeah.
Oh,
with the screw
oh,
caps, you know.
plus it's so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, they are.
Do you want a donut, Gary? Would that help your stomach any?
Right now, I'm just,
I understand that. I do. I know Ben's got a lot more questions for you, but
you guys want me to help you with something, and I want you guys made to have it.
Gary Hilfiker was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Flora Rundell, in addition to his previous sentence. Hilfiker has asked to be granted parole, but it is yet to come up for review. Thank you for watching. Check out my Patreon link in the description below and drop a like on this video. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. I'm always curious to read what you thought of the case.